back to the Not Your Normal Life show.
I
am
know.
Naomi,
And I'm Aaron.
as you already know. Again, we are continuing our series about marriage.
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 It's
And
what brings us together today.
yes, and hopefully you've liked it so far. We've had a couple episodes, and I think this will be our last one in the series, right?
Yeah, this definitely is going to be our last one. So we're going to be doing 3 episodes at a time. We're excited to bring you guys along. But today, I think we've talked about this before in the past, but we're going to really want to talk a little bit more about why you want to kind of fight for your marriage. You want to date your spouse. You need to work at it because it's not something that just you can't just stop. You can't just stop once you get the white dress on and the tux, and then you get the rings on your fingers. All of that. It doesn't stop there. You got to keep going at it, right?
Yeah, and I think we talked about the value of marriage in our last episode and why it's important to get married, not only in the Christian community but just in general for society. If you're interested in learning about what we said there, go back and watch that episode. But now that we've kind of talked about the value of marriage, we want to talk about how to sustain that marriage. And it can be hard. Obviously people say marriage is hard, and we're no experts at it. But I think just some tips and tricks for how to date your spouse and working at your marriage and really fighting for it goes a long way.
And I think the reason why we are so passionate about wanting to fight for our marriages and why we really push it is because me and Naomi thought we were doing such a great job in our marriage. And it turned out we were not doing a good job at all. And it got to the point where we cheated on each other. Like we've said repeatedly, we will say it again over and over and over because now we're just used to saying it. So it's not really even something that bothers us anymore. But the fact that it got to the point where we had cheated on each other because we weren't communicating well, we weren't having the conversations we needed to have, making sure each other were doing fine with different things that we were struggling with. We weren't doing that as a couple. And it ended up having us to sit on a couch and say, is this marriage worth it? And at the end of the day, yes, our marriage was worth it. Are there some times where marriages have to end? Yes. There are situations where a marriage has to come to an end, whether it's abuse or it's just you've already poured a lot of time and effort into it and you're not seeing anything getting fixed.
Or it's one-sided where one person in the relationship is working really hard and the other one's not really engaged. So we've seen a lot of that. But like Aaron said, we thought we were good, but it was very surface level, I think.
It was super surface level.
We didn't really talk about important stuff, how we were feeling. And so we ended up cheating on each other. And so we're not going to talk about that, but we are going to talk about what we did to restore our marriage, which you have to be committed, obviously, if you go through something like that.
Exactly.
You have to be 100% into it. And so thankfully we both were in that place.
And when we went to therapy, I don't know why we're starting to turn this talking about our problems. When we were in couples therapy after our incident, we were sitting down with our therapist and she says, are you guys both in this? Because if one of you's just in it, this isn't worth it. It's going to collapse. And so she said, in order for your marriage to be successful, you both need to put the time and the effort in. It's not a one-person show. It's not I'm for it, and then only show up. But in reality, you're not listening to anything the therapist is saying. You're not actually listening to your spouse as they're addressing their problems, or you're starting to already hold anger and bitterness and frustration at what your spouse is saying. Well, even though your spouse is just trying to help you and help each other in the situation. So it's definitely, that's when it comes down to when you get to that point, when you're in those situations, definitely you have to both be in it.
Yeah. And we learned a lot about having a safe space to be open about stuff. So before, and this again is not an episode at all about communication.
No, but this is fighting for your marriage. This is fighting for your marriage. This is dating your spouse.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Taking the steps to make your marriage priority. And so when we were starting to be more honest with each other and communicate more about how we were feeling, you have to also create an honest space for that. So if Aaron would come to me and say, hey, I'm not, I'm struggling today and I can't shoot him down. So it definitely goes both ways because you want to create that environment to have healthy conversation, to process and heal if that's something that you need in your relationship.
And one thing that I would recommend doing as we're getting into dating your spouse and stuff like that and talking about that, we did something really fun when we started doing the therapy and all this stuff is we went on a first date again.
Yeah, that was
And
fun.
I recommend every couple to once in a while, not every month, like once a year, go on a first date again. I know it's weird that you say that. Don't just show up in two different cars and be the awkward like, "Hi, my name's Aaron." Like, well, we did that. We're like, "Hi, my name's Aaron," and she was like, "Hi, my name's Naomi," and we had a conversation. We asked questions about each other that you would ask on a first date. And we had that experience, and it was actually really, really fun
Yeah.
that I got to have a first date with my wife again. I actually had butterflies while we were doing it because I was like, oh, I hope I impress her. I was like, what am I talking about? I have a ring on my finger. But then I realized the fun that was involved when we were first dating, the joy that came with getting to understand and learn a new person and understand who they are and all their quirks and all their things. And so that first date, those awkward butterflies, I think that was really fun to go on that adventure. And so
Yeah,
to
I
start that
agree.
off with it come dating, once in a while, go on a first date. Once a year. I would say that. Once a year, go on a first date with your spouse. And yeah, go on a
Yeah.
first date.
I like that. And also, I know one thing that we thought was fun was, remember we played like Harry Potter trivia at like that pizza place?
Yeah.
So like you just have to like think of fun thing. Like don't be boring. Like when you go out to eat, put your freaking phones down and like talk to each other and don't talk about your kids and don't talk about your schedule. Like and don't talk about your finances. Just like have fun. Like kind of what Aaron was saying. Like the first date kind of scenario's fun, but then like anything you like doing. Like I remember we went out to eat and I was like, let's just play some trivia, and I like went on
pulled
Google
on a phone and we
found like Harry Potter trivia,
like
and it was
2
super
hours
fun.
of just doing trivia back and forth on
Yeah,
each other.
and it's like you just have to make sure that you're like adding the fun back in because your life can get so mundane and like, oh, I got to cart the kids off to school, we got to go to this activity, we got to go to church, we got to do this, and it starts to turn into like a business transaction. Yeah. Sometimes it feels like you're like a business partner, but that's not the point. The point of marriage, yes, you should definitely focus on those things because those are the foundation of everything else. If you know where your money's at, if you know like you're communicating about your schedule, all of that is a good foundation so then you can go have fun. And so babysitters are also very expensive. So if you have family that you can lean on to watch
Utilize
your kids,
them. But if you don't, babysitters are great.
Yeah.
We have 2 really great babysitters that we use, and they're wonderful people.
Yeah, and we try to go out like once a month or so.
Once or twice a month, we try and go on a little date, whether it's just for a few hours or it's a big date, or I don't know what you consider a big date, but
yeah. And that was one of our priorities when we moved out of state, because when we moved from Washington to Texas, we know no one. And so we decided that it would be a big priority at the beginning to find a couple babysitters. Because first of all, we were going crazy for a while because we couldn't leave our children with anyone. So finding that good support system, whether that's family or a sitter, and just being able to use them, like do it. You deserve it. And you should go out and have fun with your spouse.
Yeah. And so that's communication. Like we've said it before in the past, it's very key to being in the relationship with your spouse. But it also, when it comes to dating, is this that also that communication aspect of the marriage. So
yeah.
But all right, so on talking about like dating your spouse and all these different things and fighting for your marriage, I brought up at the very beginning that it's a continued thing you have to do. You have to always work on the marriage. You always have to put effort into it. Our pastor actually had a sermon about this, fighting for our marriages. And I remember him talking about you change the oil on your car. You don't, what do you say? You don't, when you run out of gas, you don't get rid of the car because it ran out of gas. You go and fill it back up. And a lot of times in marriages, people just in the marriage, when all the spark and the love and the fire runs out, they just get rid of the marriage. Well, you don't do that with a car, so why would you do that in your marriage? It's just, that's why I think the spark of being able to go on first dates and dating your spouse keeps that tank full of the relationship. Because let's be honest, as we're all married, things become mundane. Things become just a repertoire, like a repetition. When you have kids, it becomes, okay, got to get to school, got to get into this, got to get into that. And that aspect of not having that relationship with one another can definitely run out. So when I say you got to put your effort into it, it's just as much of the effort as you put into your car, especially if you detail your car, you clean the inside of it. You got to clean the inside of yourself. You got to clean clean out any of the garbage that's happening between you guys, and then you got to fill the tank up every once in a while because
Yeah, I
you
like
need
that.
to do it. Unless you have an electric car, then you got to plug it in and keep it charged, right?
Sure. We don't know because we don't have one. We have a hybrid and it charges itself. Going off of that too, I think it's really healthy to have other couples in your life that are also married. And kind of honestly, we love like mentorship. And so we've been
Oh, yeah.
mentored by really awesome people. And I think what's really awesome is like when you're like we're about to be 10 years married, which sounds so ridiculously crazy. I can't even believe that's possible. But that's short for some other couples and long for others. And so what I think is really cool is if you can put a couple different people in your life, and this is really easy for the church community, right? Because a lot of married people go to church. But you can find someone to mentor. Like you can find another couple that they can kind of gain and learn from you and kind of seek out some wisdom from you.
You can also bounce stuff and help them through things too. It's just because a couple's older than you and have had more years. Actually, sorry, I cut you off. And you can get back to your point. It reminds me of something that our good friend Chris Rutledge used to say to the youth group. He goes, I may have 30 years of life on you, but you have 14, 15 years of life that I don't have. And so in marriage, it's the same way. We may have 10 years of experience and someone may have 30 years or 25 years of marriage experience. We both can bring something to the table in that relationship with another married couple that you both can learn, because there's situations that me and Naomi gone through that I'm pretty sure some couples have never gone through, and the vice versa. And so having that bounce back, it's not a one-way street where you're just getting it bounces back too.
Yeah, totally.
Regardless of where you are in your marriage. If you're 1 year into marriage, I really recommend that you're not trying to give advice too much, because you're still in the honeymoon phase.
You're still pretty happy.
You're still pretty happy. Maybe you have some information to give, but that's a whole nother story.
You'll get there.
You'll get there, but if you're at 1 year, you got a long road.
Maybe we at least wait like 3 years.
Yeah, you got a long road to wait.
I don't know.
But
also, we also, this isn't like bragging rights at all or giving us any sort of credibility, but we have gone through a lot of stuff that statistically we should probably be divorced by now, if not like 3 times divorced. I mean that in the best way possible, but we've gone
married
through
young,
like 21.
Yep.
Had 2 unplanned children, 14 months apart, very early on in our marriage.
Should have been divorced for that.
We went through bankruptcy together.
Probably could have got a divorce from that.
So that's a pretty big deal.
And then we cheated on
each other.
So
here we are, still married.
And we also have an autistic kid, which we've talked about in the past. We have an autistic kid. And so we have about 4 or 5 areas where we are beating the statistics. We're not saying we're perfect. We're not saying that it's a very difficult road, but we're very lucky to have each other as partners in crime, in this life, in this world we call life. But definitely we're coming from a position of telling you that it's possible to keep things going.
And
that's why we're talking about dating. So.
I know, and I cut you off too.
No, go ahead.
So that's also why we love this podcast, because we can share that experience and hopefully encourage you. And every couple has their own journey and has their own story, and some have more than us and some have less, and that's not any sort of like system of like badge of honor, like not at all, but basically finding other people, regardless of how their marriage, what they've been through, you can always learn from other couples and then pass on wisdom to others as well. And it could be even the same couple. Maybe you find another couple that has been married around the same time as you, and you both kind of encourage each other in different ways. And so I think that's really important, not only for your marriage to get some tips on kind of like how to work together, but also like community itself is important to be in.
Exactly. And then that comes back to just the dating aspect of being in a relationship and working at it and fighting for it. It's super important that you do it, because marriage is a beautiful thing. It's meant to last your entire life, for you to be with that one person. And that's why, with taking steps of going on first dates, doing random trivia, playing board games. Me and Naomi like to go out on the porch. We haven't done it in a while. We need to get back out there.
It's getting, colder
it's
out
a little
there
colder.
in Texas.
It's
I don't
60
know.
degrees. It's so cold. But getting out on our front porch, we used to play Uno like every night. Mancala, we like play dominoes together. We're getting
people.
old, but those things are fun. We don't sit on our phones or on the couch. We just sit there. And me and Naomi are very competitive. So it's not like this is just a fun game we play.
And I always win.
No, she doesn't. Okay. But
I let
doing
him
stuff
win.
like that. And I think a really big part of marriages that causes failure, and I'm saying this because that's what I feel, is we spend too much time in our own little worlds on our phones,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not focusing on our spouse. And both do it. Men and women do it, where they can literally be in the same room, and we've done it lots of times,
Yeah.
where we both sit on a phone and we don't talk to each other for like
Hey,
3
but
or
we
4
share
hours.
reels.
But we share reels back and forth. But we're not in relationship. We're
Yeah.
not trying to be in relationship at those moments. We're just trying to zone out. And that, I'm not saying don't zone out. It's okay, but limit how much you do that, because there might be a time where you're zoning out as the individual and your spouse is not, and your
Mm-hmm.
spouse is sitting there wanting to do something with you, but you're spending all the time on your phone,
Yeah.
laughing at things, liking other, maybe if you're a man, you're liking another woman's posts or another woman's pictures, and your wife is seeing that, and they're going to start having bitterness grow in their heart, and they're going to become angry,
True.
and it might drive them to do things that they necessarily wouldn't have done in the first place. And so take time,
Yeah.
spend time together. You're in it for the long haul, so you might as well hang out. Even if you're at 10 years, there's still something to talk about, because there's
Yeah.
always something for me and Naomi to talk about.
And I saw a meme not that long ago that said, "You're my favorite person to lay in bed with and stare at our phones." And I think that's funny, but it is like, make time for each other, especially if you're in your bed. Put your phone down and like kiss
Okay.
and have
All right.
sex.
Yeah. That's the
That's a
ongoing
whole
joke with our
nother-
neighborhood right now is
Yeah.
this.
Watch the
'Cause
other
of-
episode.
watch the other episode.
To figure out what this means.
Go ahead.
And then I wanted to bring up love languages
Okay,
too.
okay, love
But
language.
before we get there,
Wait for your love
go for it.
language. The one thing that you said, be like, hey, you want to be the person I want to lay in bed and be on my phones with.
Mhm.
Me and Naomi want to lay in bed with you and watch how things are made on
Yeah.
Discovery, and
We-
we are obsessed with learning how things are made.
If you need a
haven't
new
watched
show,
it, watch it.
mostly just to watch
I think there's
when
like
you fall
4,
asleep.
like 1,000 episodes of how things are
I
made.
have gotten so smart. I could tell you how kayaks are made, how sprinkles on cakes are made, and even I learned how plastic horses are made.
Yep, you learned.
So
So okay, love language. So yeah, I just side note. Go ahead, love language.
shameless plug for how things are made. No, I wanted to talk about love languages because there's 5. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you're not familiar with the love languages, you can
I only know
Google it.
mine.
What?
I only know mine.
You don't know mine?
Yours is acts of service.
And
I don't know.
quality time.
Quality time. Yeah.
And
quality
yours
time. I
is
knew that.
Probably touch, like every man in the
Physical
world.
touch and quality.
And probably words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation. Yeah.
So, anyways, if a lot of people are familiar with the love languages, but if you're not, it's worth looking up online and learning more about it, because this is going to be like the layman's terms, like
Yep.
Naomi condensed version. But there's 5 love languages, and I think it's words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, acts of service, and gifts.
Yeah.
And
I'm
so,
pretty sure.
any of those 5, I think you primarily have 1 or 2 that you, when you, like what you give might be different than what you like to receive. So like I
Yeah.
personally really love getting acts of service done. I want
Yep.
Aaron to like help me around the house and clean and
Oh,
like
you have no idea, guys.
run
If
errands.
if I do the dishes and I vacuum, Naomi is so happy.
I'm so in love. And also quality time, like I just want to be with Aaron, like
Mhm.
just hanging out. But because I like receiving those, it's usually often that you tend to give those gifts the most because you think
And
that's what
I
other
don't
people
like
love.
those.
So I could clean the whole dang house, and Aaron might be like, "Oh, that's cool, bro." And what Aaron really wants is for me to like cuddle with him on the couch and watch a movie
I want kisses.
and
I
kiss
don't want
him
cuddles.
and
I want kisses.
tell him he's so handsome
Yeah.
and he's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting though, because it's cool to find out what you tend to gravitate towards at receiving, because that's usually what you like to give.
Mhm.
And it's nice to learn your spouses so that you can start to use the right love languages on them.
Exactly. And it's very hard to use the right love. And especially, so Naomi is like not the affection side of showing physical touch is one of Naomi's like not favorite things is the physical touch
Yeah.
side.
Don't
And
touch
so
me.
it takes a lot for Naomi to want to get to that. But she learned through therapy that she needs to do that.
Yeah, it's
and
good.
just like me, I need to know that I need to cuddle with Naomi more, and I need to wash the dishes and clean around the house. And that really affirms her, which is an area that I'm not really good at, are those areas.
Yeah.
And so I work really hard to try and show that the best I can.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, definitely. Love language
I just
is a
think,
great way
yeah, we always
to
talk.
understand your spouse. A love language is a great idea.
We always talk about the Enneagram. So, like, I'm not going to beat that horse again, but we love, like, the different tools of the Enneagram, of the love languages, just to kind of learn more about your spouse. And I don't know, this was like a wake up moment for me because I thought everybody perceived the world and wanted the same love language as me until I realized that I'm not like everyone
When you
else.
got married, you found out.
Yeah, so it's just nice to have, there are tools out there if you're looking for different things to kind of help spice up your marriage, I guess. It's not really
Exactly.
spicing up your marriage, it's just learning more about each other and you know, communicating and showing affection a little bit differently.
Yeah, and it's not, marriage isn't just about sex. I just want to point that out. It's not just about sex. That's great, and that's a really great aspect of marriage, but that shouldn't be the fail safe in your marriage. Oh, things are going wrong, let's just have sex. Okay. And that's not a quick fix. There's a lot more to marriage than that. And that's why when we talk about fighting for your marriage and contending for it, like and then dating your spouse, those are the ways that you don't just have to turn to the physical aspect of marriage, which is sex. You don't have to always just turn to that to try and fix the problems, when sometimes that very thing that you think is fixing the marriage could be the reason why you're having problems in the marriage, because that's not what your spouse wants. Maybe your spouse just literally wants to play some Harry Potter trivia and sitting at a bar and like cracking jokes about different little like fun facts.
Yeah.
And you don't know that, and you're not realizing it because we're too busy, or you're too busy with what you want and not with the other. I think that's the other important thing is what I've learned in marriage is really putting another person ahead of yourself and doing whatever you can for them. It's not being selfish and you don't want to be like over giving to the person, but you don't want to be selfish where you're not giving enough to lift them up, because when that happens, you have situations like what we walk through.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also harder to make time for kind of like the date nights and
Especially
fun
if you have
things,
kids.
especially if you have kids.
Yeah.
But it's important, and I feel like, who said this one time? I don't know. This is like a famous quote, but like, you make time for the things that matter. So when you say you don't have time, like, that's never really true, because you always shift things around for priorities. And so I think you should be making your marriage and quality time with your spouse a priority. Like, even if you're busy and you have stuff going on, like, make it work. Like, there's no real excuse. You can do one date night a month and not like completely break the bank and, you know, stress out your schedule.
There's been times where we just walk around Target for 2 hours.
That's
so
the
it's
best date.
We just walk around Target and
even buy
Hobby Lobby,
anything.
and we get some Chick-fil-A. And you know what? That's what we do. And that's a great, or maybe get some crumble
I want
cookie.
to do that right now. Let's go.
No, kids are asleep. You can't
It's
do
8
that.
p.m.
It's 8 p.m. Now you know that we pre-record everything.
Oh, whoops.
This isn't live. But yeah, we really want to encourage you. This whole series of the marriage was, oh, go ahead.
And find hobbies. Like, literally, we do this podcast because this is something we do together.
And we like doing this
create
together.
content together, and it's freaking fun, usually.
There's some
Sometimes we
fights.
fight, but that's okay. But it's like, this is a hobby that we found that we like. Hey, we like talking about stuff. Let's record it. We like doing the branding and sharing on social media. And like, it's really fun for us to have like this side hobby.
Find a hobby that
Yeah.
you and your spouse can do together. We used to swing dance. We still sometimes swing dance, but we used to swing dance a lot, and that was a hobby we did. And this has now become that opportunity for us to talk, because sometimes when we're talking right now, guys, we learn a little bit more about what's going through each other's minds when we have these conversations. So you're kind of getting it pretty raw, our conversations.
It's
and
true.
sometimes we get done, we're like, really? You feel that way about that? Okay, cool. I didn't
It's
know
recorded.
that. It's recorded. Now I have to remember that.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate you guys coming along with this. Oh my gosh.
I did have one more thing.
What now?
You can do date nights at home. So just my last shameless plug. Like, you can have a date night at home. And actually, I've been seeing ads on my Instagram because Instagram knows what I want to do because of the algorithm, right? It like knows me. There's like these date night boxes, and I haven't. Have you seen those on Instagram? Do you get those ads?
Yeah.
It looks fun.
They
I
look
think
pretty fun.
we should get sponsored by them. But it's like I don't even know if it's great, so I've never tried it, but it's like a fun thing where you can like subscribe to this date night box and they send you like at home date nights once a month, which I think is super cute. Like you can get like a s'more kit and like a board game like sent to you like once a month or whatever, and it's really cute. But even if you don't want to do a subscription like that, there's lots of fun things you can do at home, like when your kids go to sleep, like watch a movie, or like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You can do fun stuff at home without breaking the bank. That's all I got to say.
Okay.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Okay. So in closing of this series, I think we've said a lot tonight. I think that we did a really good job at helping you guys come into the life of Aaron and Naomi and what we do. Hopefully that just encourages you. But I hope this series has encouraged you. And we have it on YouTube. If you guys are watching, guys, like, subscribe, share. We really would love to see who is out there watching us. So please like, subscribe, share, and comment of what you liked about it. And this series will always be up for you guys to watch. So if you ever need to go back and watch it,
and if you're not following us yet on Facebook or Instagram, you can find us Not Your Normal Life Podcast.
Yeah.
Our Instagram handles, I think it's NYNL
page,
Podcast.
right up at the top.
You can find us.
To see it. But yeah, we really appreciate you guys coming along. We are doing this just because we like doing it. We're not doing it for the fame, for the money, because we don't make any money on it. We spend all of our money on this. But if you'd like to, just go ahead and give us a comment. Tell us what you think about this series or any of our series. Next week, we're going to be starting a new series. You'll find out what that is when it comes. We have some really cool things coming down the pipeline. Some really fun interviews that we're having. We're having people coming in and sitting down with us. That's going to be really, really exciting. We have interviews lined up coming up. So for different episodes. But we hope we really encourage you guys. Get out there, date your spouse, love on your spouse, find something new, find a hobby. Stay at home and go on a date at home if you want to do that, like Naomi says. But this has been Not Your Normal Life. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Naomi.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.